Hi, I'm going to demonstrate to you how to attach a sleeve for hanging to your finished quilt for the quilt show. And I'd like to extend our thanks to Quilting Arts Magazine and Leslie Tucker Jennison, whose instructions for a sleeve I am going to demonstrate. Alright, the first thing you need to do is you've got your finished quilt and you're going to measure across the top edge of your quilt from edge to edge. And whatever that measurement is, you're going to cut a strip of fabric that is that length by 9 inches wide. So your strip of fabric is 9 inches wide by the measurement of the top finished edge of your quilt. What you're going to do then is you're going to take one of these 9-inch ends and you're going to press under 1/4 of an inch, turn it and press it again so that you've got a nice finished edge, and you're going to machine stitch that edge, and you're going to do that at both ends of your strip of fabric so that both ends are stitched. And then you're going to take that strip of fabric and fold it lengthwise, right sides together, and stitch it with a 1/4 inch seam. So when you're done, it will look like this, with your double hem at both ends and a 1/4 inch seam. Then you're going to take and turn this sleeve right side out, like so that it will look like this. You're then going to take and press this sleeve. And you're going to press it so that the seam that you just stitched is along one edge, and press that flat and just press the whole thing so that it looks like this. Your next step is going to be to take the folded edge that does not have the seam on it, the folded edge, you're going to take this over to your sewing machine, and 1/2 inch in from this fold, you're going to do a machine basting stitch. That will be the longest length stitch that your machine will sew. On mine, it's a 5 or a 5.5. Once you've stitched it, see, it's going to look like this. This is your sleeve with the 1/2 inch basting stitch from the folded edge. You're then going to take this sleeve and realign it so that where your stitching line is from that basting is going to line up with the seam that you sewed earlier when you sewed the whole sleeve together. And you're going to line this up and press it flat. At this point, the sleeve itself is constructed and it just needs to be attached to your quilt. Here's the finished quilt. This is the back side of it, the wrong side, and pretend like there's binding all the way around. You're going to take your finished sleeve and you're going to center it along the back of your quilt, and that's actually going to be set in a 1/2 inch from where your binding ends. If this had binding, it would be right about here, and that's a 1/2 inch in at each end. And it's going to be, you're going to line it up and pin it so that it's 1 inch from this folded edge of the sleeve to the top finished edge of your quilt. That's 1 inch. And you're going to pin it along the bottom, and you're then going to hand stitch it basically around all 4 sides. And of course on the ends you need to be sure that you're only stitching the bottom layer, because you've got to leave an opening for the pole to go through. So I'll just demonstrate the stitch I'm using. What you want to be sure of and watch out for is that you don't take a stitch through that will show on the front of your quilt. So you're just slipping your needle in between the batting without going through the front layer of the quilt. And when I'm doing it, I generally every few stitches, I turn it over and check. It's a little hard to see here because I'm using white thread on white fabric, but so you'll just stitch that all the way around and at the other end, and again, make sure that you leave that open. Then you will remove your pins, and when you remove this basting thread, which should pull out real easily, you'll probably have to clip the thread in a couple of places, but just remove the thread, and then that will release this fullness here, which will allow room for the rod that your quilt will hang on without causing distortion on the front of the quilt when it's hanging in the show. Hope this was helpful to you. Thanks.